Hello, and welcome to the Atlantic Council's Experts of the Americas series. I'm Jeff Ramsey, Senior Fellow with the Adrian Arch Latin America Center. Today, I'm honored to be joined by the Mayor of Bogotá, Colombia, Carlos Fernando Galán. Mayor Galán has been leading the country's capital at a time of both significant challenges, but also some interesting opportunities, from strengthening security to driving forward initiatives that make Bogotá a more resilient and a more inclusive city. We're meeting at a pivotal moment in the US-Colombia relationship. In recent days, the US government announced its decision to decertify Colombia as a partner in the fight against drugs. At the same time, however, Washington issued a national interest waiver, ensuring that US assistance and security cooperation will continue on the ground and minimizing the potentially negative impact of this decision on the relationship. This underscores the enduring importance of the bilateral partnership, even amid frustrations with Colombia's national government, which are widespread here in Washington. Against this backdrop, we'll be discussing Bogotá's role in shaping the future of the US-Colombia relationship, the city's efforts to tackle security challenges, and his vision for making Bogotá a safer, greener, and more prosperous place for all of its citizens. Mayor Galán, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us. I just wanted to start out by saying that, Bogotá, it's historically been an important partner with the United States, not only as Colombia's capital, but also as a hub of subnational diplomacy, trade, and commerce. So I just wanted to ask you, how do you see Bogotá's role in strengthening the US-Colombia relationship?
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Jeff, and it's a pleasure to be here at the Atlantic Council for us in Bogotá. As the mayor, and I know former mayors as well, have had in the Atlantic Council an opportunity to connect with the U.S. and with the different actors of the U.S. So it's a good opportunity to be here. Well, Bogotá, as I was mentioning before, Bogotá is a city that, while the U.S. is the main partner of Colombia in terms of trade, 27% of exports from Colombia come to the U.S. In the case of Bogotá, it's an even more important role because 41% of Bogotá's exports come to the U.S. So this is an opportunity. Bogotá is strategically located in the Americas. We are very close to the U.S. We are closer to New York than Los Angeles is close to New York. And we also have direct flights to all of the Latin American countries, to Buenos Aires, to Chile, to Brazil. So this position and the relationship between the two economies for us is an opportunity in which we want to expand, we want to work on, we want to strengthen those ties and to explore new possibilities of collaboration. And so that's the vision that we have in Colombia. We look at the US as the main partner and we want to keep it as the main partner. That's our plan, that's our idea. And we have issues like trade, like security, in which we want to work on, and also in the environment. So this is a good relationship that we want to strengthen.
And Bogotá, like the rest of Colombia, has dealt with some security challenges in recent years. Could you share a little bit about the way that your government is prioritizing tackling organized crime, transnational organized crime, drug trafficking, et cetera? I mean, what's the response look like from Bogotá?
Yes, well, we have a situation today in Colombia that is difficult as we see the increase in the hectares of coca crops in the country. That has represented an increase in the production of drugs in the country. So the local governments, Bogotá is one of them, the main one, of course, but other governments at the local level in Colombia have worked to strengthen the capacities of the police. The Colombian police is a national police, but in the cities we can give them money and capacities so they can have better tools to fight the drug cartels in the cities. So we have done that. The city has increased the capacity of the police by increasing the budget by 60% in terms of security. We have a budget right now roughly for the 4 years of around $700 million just from the city to the police mainly. But we are facing a challenge because that increase in the drug crops on the side has represented an increase in the fights between different legal groups that come to the city to try to either sell the drugs in the city because we have seen an increase in consumption also in Colombia. But at the same time, it's a port. Bogotá is a port also because we have connections with many areas. So at the same time, that becomes a danger. So we are increasing the capacity, but we need to have at the national level more commitment to work together so we can be more effective. We see the armed forces as a very important ally, but the national policy hasn't been effective in attacking those actors. So I think the local governments in Colombia are doing their job, not just Bogotá, all the local governments, the armed forces as well. We need the national government to do that.
Huh. Well, you mentioned, Mayor Galán, the fact that Bogotá is closer to New York than LA is. You mentioned sort of the strategic importance of the U.S. relationship. I'm just curious, as mayor, how are you working to position Bogotá as a strategic source for U.S. investment? What's the relationship look like with the U.S. at a subnational level when you think about the potential for investment, but commerce as well?
Well, we have several opportunities in Bogotá. Bogotá, as I was mentioning, is strategically located in the Americas, so that's an opportunity for American companies to access the Latin American market. Also, we have in the city one of the main advantages that we have in Bogotá is the human capital we have. We have 3 out of the 15 best universities in Latin America are in Bogotá. Roughly 40% of those who have a PhD in Colombia live in Bogotá. More than half of those who speak a second language in Colombia are in Bogotá. And so that's also we have a labor market that it's important. It's increasing, more than 4 million people, and most of those who have a graduate degree or undergraduate degree are in Bogotá at the same time. So those are some of the reasons why we believe Bogotá has advantages. At the same time, we have opportunities. For example, being Bogotá's airport, the main airport in terms of capacity in all of Latin America. We have the highest number of passengers in Bogotá and the highest cargo in all of Latin America at the same time, at the same airport. It's an opportunity. We can have investments around the airport. We have also an opportunity in terms of investments related to urban development in the country and in the city, within the city. So those are some of the areas in which we want to attract investments. But we have many other sectors. The service sector, we have the health sector at the same time. We have the energy sector. Bogotá has a company that has investments not only in the city, but within the country and even in Brazil, Peru, in Guatemala, among other areas. So we have many opportunities and many areas in which we think we could attract investments from U.S. companies.
Mayor Galán, I know that you have really tried to make investments in reducing emissions and in building a more climate resilient city in Bogotá. Could you talk a little bit about your prioritization of these issues?
Yes, the city, well, one of the projects we have is the metro, the first metro line that will reduce by 171,000 metric tons of CO2 the emissions when it's working, when it's in operation. At the same time, we have the second largest fleet of electric buses in all of Latin America, just behind Santiago. But we are working to have the first fleet, the biggest fleet, in the next 2 years. We are, for example, in the process of buying 279 high-capacity buses for the city, and we're going to change roughly 10,000 buses in the next 10 years to become a city with a system that is sustainable. At the same time, we're working on protecting areas around the city. We have probably the biggest project in terms of water resilience and water security than any city in the world with the Green Climate Fund. This is a project to restore and conserve roughly 171,000 hectares around the city of protected lands that will help us guarantee access to water, reduce wildfires, for example, and reduce the impact of those fires in the quality of the air, for example. So these are some of the projects that we have that are ambitious, that are being implemented right now, and that will make Bogotá a city that is better prepared to face climate change in the next coming years.
I mean, from my perspective, I certainly noticed the investment in sustainable transportation. I was in Bogotá a few weeks ago, and I thought I noticed more bike lanes
Yes.
than previously. Just to close, Mayor Galán, when you talk about these investments in sustainable transportation and climate resilience, do you think there's any lessons there for other mayors in Latin America or even here in the United States?
Well, I think, yes, we're doing many things, and I just wanted to mention on the bicycles, we have roughly 850,000 trips per day.
Wow.
On bicycles in the city, and that's increasing. So I think we have the biggest, sector in terms of people who move with bicycles than any other city in Latin America, and we want to increase that. I think one of the main things that I would say to other mayors or other cities is, from my experience, is important to understand the role that a leader has in taking the torch at some time in the history of a city, understanding what happened before, what can be built on to guarantee that we produce results quickly, and what changes need to be done that will take time. For example, one of the main investments we're doing is education. I won't see the results of that. Maybe the next mayor won't see the results of that. Maybe it's going to take a generation. But I think we have to understand what is something that can produce results quickly, and that relates to what is done before our government, and we can move with that. And one needs to do this, or make decisions for the long term, that needs investment for the long term, and that we need to take decisions about that, even though we won't see the results.
Well, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for being with us and sharing these insights. I want to invite everybody watching this to follow along as Bogotá continues to lead the region and the world in many respects on so many of these issues, and to follow our work at the Adrian Arsh Latin America Center, where we are closely monitoring developments in the US-Colombia relationship and working to deepen the bilateral partnership. Thank you again.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.